Ella Goodie was born on the 4th of September 1989. She was raised in Lafayette, Louisiana. Growing up, Ella had a tough childhood. She spent some time in a detention home for troubled teens. It would be here she would meet her best friend Felicia. The two would bond immediately, with Ella considering her as a big sister as well as a friend. But her living situation was tougher than most. From a young age, she had to be the caretaker of her mother, who is handicapped. She also had a younger brother who she needed to take care of. Ella had to step up from a very young age. But despite the challenges, she always remained in good spirits, no matter the hardships she went through. Her friends would describe how once you got to know her, you would grow to love her. She was someone who always gave off good vibes. Ella eventually moved to Scott, a small town in Lafayette Parish, about 60 miles west of Baton Rouge. She also went on to have 2 children, who were teenagers by 2022. At this point, Ella, now 32 years old, needed some work. Her friend suggested she start working for Lyft, something she was unsure about initially. However, she did start to work as a driver for the ride-sharing service. While initially reluctant to have people in her vehicle, she eventually settled into it and grew to enjoy the job. So much so, she eventually decided to do it on her own. She started doing rideshare without the app, probably because she thought without the app she could make more money. However, without the app, the job became somewhat riskier. On Tuesday, March the 8th, 2022, the day before Ella disappeared, she spoke to her best friend Felicia. The pair just discussed normal goings-on in their lives, such as talking about the weekend. Nothing out of the ordinary and nothing concerning. Ella talked about people she had met and places she had been taking them. This would be the last time she would speak to her friend. The next day, Goodie spoke with her brother around noon, when she mentioned that she was heading to Houston, Texas to drop off a passenger. This would be the last communication anyone would have with her. Ella Goodie never came back home from that journey. Later that day, Felicia tried calling Ella, but didn't get a response. Almost immediately, she thought this was unusual. Enough so that the following day, out of concern, she rung one of Ella's 2 teenage children, asking them to pass a message on. At this point, there was slight concern, but not immediate panic. I believe at this point her children didn't mention she had not returned. Felicia called back the following day, having still not been able to get hold of Ella. At this point, one of the children told her she had not returned from her trip to Texas, and now it was sheer panic. Ella's brother reported her missing on Saturday the 11th of March. The family and friends immediately started searching every avenue they could possibly search on their own, but came up with nothing. Goodie was last seen driving on Interstate 10, heading towards Texas. With an investigation underway, it was determined on March the 10th, her car, a black 2012 Audi Q5 with the license plate number NRN 6551, was photographed by traffic cameras heading north out of Dallas on Highway 75 in the direction of Louisiana. It's unclear who was driving it at this point. Her vehicle was sighted north of Dallas again the following morning, on March the 11th. When Ella disappeared, she went missing with her cell phone. It was determined it last pinged off a cell tower near Iowa, Louisiana. According to the rideshare company Lyft, Goodie was not driving through their platform on that day. Then, on April the 1st, 2022, Ella Goodie's vehicle was found abandoned in St. Joseph, Missouri, about 55 miles north of Kansas City, near the Kansas-Missouri state line. There was no sign of Ella. It wouldn't take long for officers to name a person of interest, however. It was determined Ella Goodie was last seen with Brandon Jermaine Francisco, someone who she had given a few rides to prior to her disappearance. He was arrested in St. Joseph on March the 25th on an active warrant out of Louisiana that was unrelated to Goodie's case. Brandon had failed to show up to a March 9th hearing on attempted second-degree murder charges related to a 2018 shooting. On May the 3rd, the Louisiana State Police Department posted an update on their Facebook page. It stated that based on investigative techniques and witness statements, detectives and investigators had transitioned from a missing persons case to a homicide investigation. They also confirmed Ella Goodie was last seen driving her Audi with her passenger Brandon Francisco. In October 2022, Francisco pleaded guilty to the attempted second-degree murder charge and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. This was not the first time Francisco had been convicted of a violent crime. The prosecutor told Dateline that Francisco previously served a 10-year sentence for the attempted murder of his then-wife, whom he stabbed multiple times in the early 2000s. For her loved ones, the search for answers continues. Although they have a person of interest, he has never been charged in relation to Ella's disappearance, and the whereabouts of Ella remain unknown. Ella's best friend continues to put pictures up at every gas station she can, but despite the best efforts of everyone involved, as of 2024, Ella Goodie remains missing, and her case unsolved.